Well, hello there. Here we are again. Positive Pastor Kirk here. I'm excited to be with you yet again. And so, one of the things that I want to start doing is maybe give you a little more education. But again, please, if you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, and share with others as we look to help the church build itself up in love, so that it can flourish. And these are just the things that we like to talk about. And so, again, you can always look at positivepastor.org, or you can email me, Kirk at positivepastor.org, if you have any questions. Looking forward to on May 14th speaking at the Cybert Lutheran Foundation near Milwaukee. So, looking forward to spending time there and sharing about how we can help one another and how pastors can have some strategies in order to help themselves recognize how God is using the people in there and in their lives and in their congregation. And sometimes we just need to be able to look for it because it seems out of reach. And so I thought what I would do is just take a moment and just do some education. So what we talk about when we talk about positive mental health, there are 6 components: personal satisfaction, pro-social attitude, autonomy, self-control, problem solving, and then interpersonal relationship skills. And what I thought it would be interesting to do, at least for me, it's interesting, I hope you find it beneficial, is to kind of look at some of the work that I've done and help us understand what personal satisfaction does for the pastor. What it does, actually, when you look at the positive mental health attributes that combat the negative mental health attributes that we all struggle with, those negative mental health attributes of anxiety, depression, and stress. And so when we realize that there are positive mental health actions and attributes, and what we feed, right? You've heard this before. What we feed is really what becomes of us. And so we sometimes, do we feed the spiritual person? Do we feed the fleshly person? But I think there's some practical tools that we can have as God, the Holy Spirit, uses these tools and these ideas and these concepts so that we might understand how God has fearfully and wonderfully made us, and how the fall has affected us, and so that we can fight through these things. So personal satisfaction will begin with this week. And so as I was interviewing these pastors in my study, a theme that came out that happens when they feel that they have personal satisfaction, the first theme was affirmation. And so you might know that my book is called Affirmed. And so building the positive mental health of your pastor. And so you can get it at any retail outlet online, Walmart even. And just really look at a simple, practical book of how to understand how to simply build up the positive mental health of your pastor. Listen, when your pastor is positive, actually things go better for you. But the first theme that came out of personal satisfaction is that pastors feel affirmed. You see, this theme emerged as the participants that I spoke with were asked how the actions of church members made them feel confident in themselves. Now, this meant that participants were assured and affirmed by church members' words and actions. And I think actions are important too. They were able to identify confidence in their positions by the affirmation that was offered to them. The participants that I talked to connected confidence in themselves by church members participating and responding positively to the message and getting involved. So one of the pastors said, you feel pretty good when people come to you after, when you're standing at the back of the church and people are coming out and saying things to you like, what a wonderful sermon. Or, pastor, it was a beautiful service. We really enjoyed it. Oh, the music selections were excellent. Especially it is gratifying when someone was listening to the pastor afterward and they say something about how the actual content of your message. Or maybe they'll recall a psalm that was read in the intro. Those things are exciting to hear. Another pastor said, they mentioned that we know we feel loved by you. And that affirms something, that something is valuable. And so when they recognize that as pastors, that something is valuable to me and say it out loud, I, the pastor, walks away going that I was made for this. I'm affirmed. I know I'm supposed to do this. And so other comments were really about that. Hey, pastor, I just watched your message online. During COVID, we didn't get a lot of feedback as pastors. And so for someone to email, I watched your message online. Thanks for caring for us through this time. And so that was very affirming and helped that pastor feel supported. Another pastor said, people affirm you for being by their side. He was talking about how they recently just gathered back together because of COVID. And and when we returned, they made up for the Sundays that we had not been allowed to meet. So they affirmed the ministry, and the ministry was valuable. That getting together was important, and thanking him for helping through COVID. So we have a first theme of personal satisfaction for a pastor is affirmation, and I would say that goes across the board. Even for us as people, we need to feel affirmed. We need to feel that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. And so another theme that came out of personal satisfaction was engagement. Now, maybe we should look at what personal satisfaction is. It's really on how one's outlook is on life. Am I satisfied? Am I happy with where I'm at? And also my optimism for the future. And so we had that they're affirmed, and then there's some things that came out of when I'm talking about personal satisfaction with people, and that is engagement. See, this theme was revealed, and participants were asked what actions of church members made them feel satisfied with life, right? Personal satisfaction, satisfied with life. Participants described when church members get involved and participate in activities of the church as engagement. Just think about this. If you're a person, a church member, and you're wanting to help your pastor have better mental health, show up, get involved. Really, that's what you need to do. Bring your kids consistently. But the correlation between satisfaction with life and church membership engagement was evident among all the participants I talked to. And this theme was evident again throughout all the questions on personal satisfaction. One of the pastors said, generally speaking, those people that serve the church and help them personally, that they provide and help with worship events and social events for the congregation. I mean, like elders and senior members of the congregation. And then there are people who constantly are serving the congregation because they were born and raised in the church, and that's their life. In fact, I'm thinking personally for me today, we have a funeral tomorrow, although when this airs, we have a funeral today. But there were several people that came to help set things up, to get things ready. Several people, over 30 people are involved in bringing food and things for the reception afterwards. And so as a pastor, I don't have to bear that burden. I can just rejoice and cheer and be grateful for what God is doing. One pastor said there was someone he remembered vividly who was dying of pancreatic cancer. She was on hospice, and he asked her if she had ever been baptized. And she was in the church when she was younger, but hadn't been since she was like 8 or 9 years old. And so she told that pastor that she wanted to be baptized because she didn't know if she had been. And so he said, well, we're here, you're bedridden, you're elderly. I'll just do a baptism here at your home. And she said, no, I would like to come to church. And so her and her husband brought her to church, and they carried her into the church. And it was on a Saturday because she didn't want a lot of people to see her because she was, bedridden and not doing well. She barely stood at the baptismal font. But once she was baptized, you could tell a difference in her countenance, the pastor recalls. One of peace. 2 days later, she passed away. That kind of situation made that pastor feel great, not because of what he had accomplished, but because of what God had accomplished through him and the response of that church member being engaged in wanting to be part of the faith through baptism. And so it's important that we understand that engagement. A simple thing was pastor was getting ready for a funeral, and there was going to be a large funeral, and he was sitting there folding bulletins, and then a mother and her daughter came in, and they're like, Pastor, we can do that for you. And so just those simple things of engagement is really important for us to understand. So the part of personal satisfaction, that's the positive mental health attribute. But underneath that, what we find is that there is affirmation that builds that personal satisfaction. There's engagement that builds that personal satisfaction. And then another theme that came out was that also there's optimism about the future. See, this theme was generated when the participants were asked what were the actions of church members that made them feel optimistic about the future. You see, we live in a time, especially in the church, where being optimistic about the future can be outside of our grasp at times. But this looked like young people and families being engaged and involved gave the pastors hope for the future of the church. See, involvement and participation of members in the community and outreach activities also contribute to optimism. They're seeing beyond the church. They're inviting people to church. They want to know how they can share their faith with others. New members and people coming to receive the faith in response to the gospel contribute to optimism as well. It should be noted that many pastors describe church members as being involved or engaged in the work of the church as bringing them great personal satisfaction. And so I think it's one of those things where we look at it and say, how are you optimistic about the future? One pastor was trying to do a building project. He was building a school and he needed some help. And a gal came and says, what do you need money for? And he goes, well, I'd really like some for this. And she goes, well, here's 150,000 and I'm going to give you 100,000 more. You do what you think is best for it so that we can build the kingdom. You see, that's optimism. Someone who gets it, someone who wants to build the kingdom. Optimism is also evidence when around finances and how do they look at finances. You know, especially during the pandemic back in COVID, many churches were struggling, but a lot of churches did well. And so, from practical perspective, some of them have said, "I didn't know if we were going to make it," but people showed that they wanted the church to continue by continually supporting the work of the pastor. And so again, another thing that really just helps a pastor be optimistic about the future is parents bringing their children and youth and children contributing to the service and to the work at the church. That makes us think, okay, kids are coming to Sunday school, kids are involved. And so I want to encourage pastors out there, look for ways to get young people involved. They can light candles. Let them do it. Right. And so just look for them and ask them to do it. You know, you'll be surprised how often they just need to be asked and people will do it. So we have this idea of personal satisfaction. And I think as I'm just trying to encourage not only pastors, but church leaders and also lay people at the same time, because there's some great tools in God's word. And I always think of one of these things that when I go to seminars and when I'm teaching at conferences and sharing this work, one of the things is that we need to understand is that God has given us tools and abilities and instructions in his word. And so we look at Philippians chapter 4, beginning in verse 8. Paul says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. And I think that we need to practice doing that we need to say there are things that are going on and we can think about these things. And so we can look around and say, this is happening. People are getting engaged in the ministry. People are showing up. People are telling me as a pastor that they are enjoying what I'm doing. And so also, if you're a church member, take those little moments to say, man, am I engaged in the ministry? Am I telling my pastor that I value him? Am I showing that there's a future for the church that goes beyond my years? And so I just want to encourage you to do that. And so I just pray that you're blessed by this. Again, we together are helping the church to build itself up in love so that it can flourish. So this is the Positive Pastor Podcast. With Dr. Triplett. Isn't that exciting? Anyway, so I encourage you, please like, share, subscribe, leave some comments if you like. Please check out positivepastor.org. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on the socials under Kirk Triplett, or you can just email me at kirk@positivepastor.org. God bless you all.